Welcome to the future.
I am Grim from Seed to Shelf, and today we are going to be talking about the cutting-edge breakthrough technology, the Seed to Shelf data tracking application. Now, we have built this application on the Elrond blockchain, and if you don't know much about Elrond, it's one of the most secure networks on the blockchain. I think as of the time of writing, it's 60,000 euros to anybody that can hack the network, which is still to this day not been done. This is going to make sure that no matter what is input on the blockchain, there's a proof of work on every meticulous process and variable that goes in, allowing us to track these variables from the farmer all the way to the shelf, hence the name Seed to Shelf. No more fudging numbers, no more finding mysterious peaks of Delta-9 THC or having your door kicked in by the FDA because somebody told you something that is not the truth. We are going to bring truth and transparency to the entire industry and do so in an immutable way. The next thing that this application is going to have is APIs that are actually going to be able to integrate with these new softwares and all pieces of equipment on the market. So we've reached out to some of the biggest equipment manufacturers in the industry to be able to interface with the different pieces of equipment and with the blockchain technology. That way, instead of having a technician going from equipment to equipment with a pen or even with an iPad, it will be uploading this data in real time. This is going to enable somebody like the laboratory manager, for example, or the CEO to be able to see the entire process spread of his laboratory as it's operating. This will allow us to catch risks and errors at a moment's notice with laser precision. Now, there are three different areas that this Seed to Shelf application is really going to help. We're going to touch a little bit on each one. Number one is the farmer. The farmer is going to be able to not only calculate all of his recipes for growing as far as nutrients, was it light deprivation, was it indoor, was it outdoor, the different nitrogen or the molasses spreads that he used. It's going to enable him to calculate each and every recipe so that he can replicate his results. It will also allow the farmer to be able to, let's say he buys a strain from an individual and that strain costs a significant amount of money. And just because the strain promises to give results doesn't necessarily mean that the grower's recipe is there as well. Well, what Seed to Shelf is going to do is going to have all the parameters that the previous farmer grew with. So that is going to enable whoever now purchased this SOP to be able to formulate that SOP in real time. This is also going to take all of the certificate of analysis numbers and calculate them in an immutable way. That way, whether it's a homogenized test or whatever your state legislation is, you will always have a complete tracking of the environment used for the cannabis or marijuana plant. This will allow, whenever you go to a production laboratory, to be able to offer this data in real time. And that is going to help the farmer weed out, pun intended, a bunch of variables that may pollute their crop or may not be giving them the utmost optimal results. Next, my favorite one is the laboratory technician. So we just talked about the farmer, and as a laboratory technician, you've probably come into the situation where you've intaked a bunch of biomass that maybe said it was less than 0.3% THC in the hemp lab, for example, and then you went to run it and you pick up a bunch of pesticides, and then as everything begins to concentrate, you find that you're actually well over the legal limit of whatever oil that you're producing. So that leads to a bunch of money and production costs that went into the laboratory manager or the laboratory CEO, and he can't really get that back. This is going to allow us to track in an immutable way every part that came from the farmer so we know what kind of biomass is coming in. Now, let's say that we have the same amount of biomass, or from Farmer Brown, for example, coming in consistently. We will be able to track in real time the different variables or the different results that leads us to the optimal extraction yield clarity, and other things like that, enabling us to replicate the SOPs in the future. We will also be able to get online with each and every one of the parameters. Pesticides, for example. Let's talk about that one. Most of the time, by the time you get to the end of your product, you end up with a lot of pesticides that you now have to remediate and go back and run through, try to find which particular batch was contributing to the downfall, and then try to rectify that situation. With the seed to shelf application, you'll be able to monitor these results in real time. Not to mention, we will have built-in flags from our professional organic chemists that if something is not running right or optimally in your laboratory, you're going to be flagged on it. And this is going to allow you to make sure if a piece of machinery goes down or a technician is not keeping up with the way that the SOP is supposed to be ran, you will be able to catch this in real time, making running your laboratory a breeze. Not to mention, naturally, the certificates of analysis and everything that was used, solvent blends, temperatures, vacuum parameters, heat, everything in the process will be immutably tracked and able to be read on anybody that scans the barcode on the seed-to-shelf application. And number 5, the consumer. Whoever is buying these products. This is going to allow the consumer to weed out all of the misinformation in the market, like buying a vape pen that says just naturally strawberry, blueberry, purple haze, but they have no real idea where did it come from, how was it grown, was it grown in a GMP environment, was it produced in a GMP environment, it says organic, was an organic solvent used to process it. All of these different variables are just kind of, as the consumer, taken on word and word alone. What we are going to do for the consumer is offer transparency. As soon as you scan that barcode, you're going to see the entire life of the plant, all the way through its growth cycle, what nutrients were used, where it was grown, maybe it was local to you, through the production lab, was the solvent carried correctly, did the certificates of analysis always equal the correct and legal parameters, is everything the way that it says it is on the label, and can you pull that up in an immutable way to make sure that whatever you're putting or ingesting inside of your body is exactly what you thought it was when you gave your hard-earned money for it. The other thing that is going to benefit probably the most is law enforcement. We've all seen the stories of truckers or production pipelines that were pulled over and stopped by law enforcement between state lines or even in the state themselves, with no real way to know what is inside that 18-wheeler that is being transported over state lines. Law enforcement is left with one solution, and that is to detain whoever is transporting and hold the product until they can do proper testing. Well, with the seed-to-shelf application, that same law enforcement officer can scan the barcode and see the entire life, as well as the certificate of analysis of everything that is on that transportation log. This is going to make law enforcement's job a lot easier and going to decrease the downtime of pipeline disruptions. Number 7, and that's the municipalities. What we need to be able to further this industry all across the United States is transparency, a singular municipality or a singular regulation that we can all get behind. And I think we all know, using metric right now, that it is quite easy to fudge some numbers around, move some numbers around, and kind of say things don't exist that maybe do exist, and allow us to put inputs and weights, and all you really need to do is make a different metric tag. Well, in some cases, this can be good for whoever is fudging the numbers, but if you're on the receiving end of one of those products, this can create a problem for you, especially if the product that you thought you bought has a different combination of cannabinoids, for example, than what it really has. All of a sudden, the DEA is knocking on your door, they check, and the certificate of analysis does not match the actual test results that come back. With an immutable blockchain technology, this is going to make sure that what comes in is honest, what goes out is honest, everything is transparent, and every state or municipality governing authority has the ability to look down on everything that has happened from the life of the plant and see that all laws and regulations were followed during the life cycle of the plant. If we are looking to further the industry as a whole, I think transparency should be our #1 objective. With seed-to-shelf data tracking application, that is what you receive.
Seed to shelf. Safe, secure, superior. Seedtoshelf.us.